So today we are looking at a very important topic that you should really pay attention to is income. Income is, so we looked at money, how money sort of is important for making life better, use it as a means to achieve a lot of ends or goals in your life. But it all, to be honest, if you really want to earn money, what enables you to do that on a daily basis is income. So income is something that you get on a periodic basis, you earn it, and income results in a positive cash flow to begin with. That is a source of your funds. And let's look at this important aspect of income and why you should basically cultivate a very positive habit and have many income takes many forms, and why you should work towards getting an income stream in your life which will make you work smartly than laboriously, and like a very hard work. It's a smart work is better than hard work. So income, what are the forms basically? So before that, we'll certainly see what as I just explained, what is the basic definition of income. Any money obviously that you earn or its equivalents received on a regular payment. So the catchword here is received on a regular basis. Anything that you get one off. So you might actually get certain payments for work done on a casual basis. That's certainly not going to be income. That's a sort of one-off payment, if you can think about it that way. But anything that you are working in a business, in a profession, in a self-employment or on a salary, you would be entitled to receive fixed or variable payments for every certain periodic time frame. That would be treated as income from any work done from any asset. So if you're selling your service, if you're selling your skills, you've taken up a job to sort of work for a particular project, anything that you earn out of that can be classified as income, and that can kind of accrue to you over a period in time, right? So income again takes many forms. How? Most common form of income, as we all know, is salary. Anything that you sort of get on a monthly basis by sort of working for a gainful employment, you will be entitled to get a fixed periodic monthly sum of money, which can be called as a salary. You might get it at the end of the month, at the beginning of the next month, so on and so forth. But that fixed periodic payment that accrues to you for the labor or the work that you have done for a specific period, it could be a week, a fortnight, a month, okay, that will constitute an income. That's the easiest form of income to understand. Money received also by being gainfully employed. You can be in any profession. For example, an artist who is actually doing artwork, and it takes him 2 or 3 months for him to complete a particular artwork, and he gets a amount of money by selling his artwork. That's also income. Now he might, to increase that income, he might therefore choose to do several such artworks in a particular fixed period, like say a year. So he might do 4 artworks, 5 artworks, 6 artworks, and increase his income. But the amount of effort that he's putting to do a particular artwork, and if he's getting money by being employed as an artist, then obviously that will be treated as income. Um, the other very interesting aspects which we need to pay attention, and we are going to see that a lot in the slides to come, is any money received from an asset or an investment. This is very, very important. Just pay attention here. Any money that you receive from an asset or an investment is also income. Again, this is again defined by any authority like an income tax or a government to actually make you liable for taxes that the government might decide that you need to pay a particular amount of tax, a percentage of your income that you need to pay as a form of income tax, or as a any money that you receive from a business or a profession is liable to a particular amount of tax, that will be decided. But then any money that you received from any asset that you own, say you have a car and you have sort of let out the car on hire, and you get, for every ride that you are offering to individuals or institutions, and you get a periodic or on a trip basis you get some rental, that will also be treated as income. So you have put an asset to work, right, and you're sort of given it on hire and you're getting a cash inflows for that. That would also be treated as income. That is one form of asset, physical tangible asset. The other form of asset is financial asset, for which, let's say for example, you have lent money to the government. You bought a government bond by putting up fixed amount of money. The return that you get from a fixed instrument like a government bond, that return is also your income, right? So income takes a very broad form. Anything that you have done physically, actively, to get periodic sum by selling your skill or services, that's income. Anything that you're putting in terms of a skill set, that could be income. Anything that you're putting a tangible asset, okay, that could be income. Anything that you have invested into, which returns you either periodically or after at the end of the period, if it returns you some amount of over and above your investment, that return can be classified as income. So so it takes, as I said, many forms. Rental from income property is income. Pension, so you're sitting, you've finished your work for 30-40 years, you've retired, okay, and then your employer or government is actually entitled to give you a fixed monthly sum of money, that will be treated as income, okay. Literary works, you have written a book and you sort of are selling the book in the market, okay, and you're earning royalties on that on a periodic basis, right? You're selling that book and its contents to various institutions to get that republished somewhere. That could be treated as income, okay. And again, obviously all incomes are liable to tax. So um, all of these forms that the income is taking is it actually, there are two aspects to it which will come in a minute. Is that either you are doing certain activity, or so it could be an active kind of a thing, or it could that you are not doing any activity, you are put certain investments or put certain assets to use, that could generate certain cash inflows to you, that could be classified as income. So we'll see how do we make the best use in terms of increasing our income as we go ahead in the following slides. This becomes very important in terms of the types of income that we just saw. Active and passive. So the kinds of income that we saw just a minute ago, in terms of a person putting himself and offering himself to go for a job, right? So he's going to work for a particular company. He does that month over month over month and earns fixed salary plus bonus or whatever that including incentives that he might earn. That becomes his income. There he's actively involved in sort of doing that activity, and his whatever waking hours or the time or the effort that he's putting, that he's compensated for in form of the cash, the monthly fixed cash or variable cash that he's getting. That forms a part of the active income. Similarly, anybody who is conducting sort of a business, it could be a trade, a profession, a doctor, anybody who is running let's say a store where he's trading in goods, and by doing that activity he is basically applying his capital and turning the capital around and sort of earning profits out of that. he is doing that activity, and whatever is accruing as a result of that activity in terms of profits, that will be classified as an income, and that income will be classified again as an active income. Similarly, in terms of profession, if there's a doctor, if there's a sort of a coach, if there's a coach in terms of a swimming coach or whoever, he's rendering his services, he's actively involved in sort of rendering his services and earning the cash out of that. That income will be classified again as active income. Similarly, farming, any farming activity, any horticulture, anything that the person or the individual is doing on a daily basis towards earning the cash, right, that would be classified as active income. So what therefore constitutes passive income? Point number one. And therefore, what is better, right? I mean, does everybody sort of go through the active income route? Does everybody, to earn the cash, involved in only doing physical labor, rendering a service, doing some business or a profession? Is it important that the person carries on and does that, or is there a shortcut? I mean, is there a better way to earn the income? The other, the right way or the best way to do that is engage or earn it in a passive manner. How do you sort of get that? Obviously, the first item that we have sort of we'll be looking at is a pension. Now, pension, though being a passive income, is not really a income where it's just that you are no longer capable of actively being involved in either rendering your service or giving your labor to sort of work and uh, earn cash or income out of it. Uh, so it's for those individuals who are obviously retired and no longer gainfully employed. Those persons may be entitled for pension, where it's like a social security where you have put in your youthful years to gain through via the profession or a business that you have been doing. You have been toiling hard for many years as a employee, as a businessman or whatever. You have sort of invested in certain areas or products which give you the ability to earn this pension, whether either through government or through private channels. Then that income might be classified as passive. Now, here the passive income, when we compare it to the other incomes, when we look at it at a moment, is that so pension, when we look at it at the moment, that pension, when you compare to other passive incomes that we have listed, is not really the income that one aspires to, though it is good because the pension is going to support you for the rest of your life when you are no longer probably employable or no longer able to contribute towards sort of earning active income. So pension is a income which obviously, though taxable and can be classified as passive income, is a category of income which is rather stable, does not grow over a time like any other income like salary or business. With the active activities that we do, there is a scope that the incomes increase over a time as we age, experience, the amount of effort that we can put, we can increase the active incomes. In pension, that really does not happen. More or less, the pensions remain steady over whatever useful life that we earn that passive income from. The other passive incomes, however, like rent, interest and dividend, are the best way to actually earn, because they can with the passage of time, they can really grow just like your active incomes, and therefore it does not require your active involvement. So that is even better, which means the moment you earn anything like a rent, an interest income or a dividend income, it frees you from that activity and it enables you to augment your income or augment your cash inflows by sort of receiving these extra cash flows in form of rent, interest and dividend. So how do you move from active kind of income where there's a lot of labor involved, there's a lot of time involved, to getting in a position where you can earn a lot of passive income. I think we'll probably look at that in the future slides. However, the point to note on this particular area between active and passive income is this: active income is where you put in a lot of effort, and passive income is where the money is actually working for you. You may not be basically physically involved, you may do your own thing, you may either choose to be in leisure or you may do any other activity, but the money is actually working, or the asset is actually working in your favor to give you a steady set of cash inflows. And that's very, very critical. Why? Over time, as an individual, while everybody works for active income, passive income, cultivating the habit, or maybe sort of getting um, a source of passive income much earlier for any individual is the key to actually being a financially independent and a financially healthy, well, sort of financially well built profile, if you can call that. Building a passive income becomes extremely critical. So now let's look at um, what choices do we have when you engage in an active income, right? So what very broad categories if you were to look at, right? Where do we, how does active income come into place? As we just saw, you'll have to do some gainful activity, you'll have to sort of put either physical labor, you'll have to put in effort to get that active income. The easiest way obviously is to get employed. So all of us at several points in our careers have, I mean, to be honest, when you start your career, the first thing that you would want to offer is that you would want to offer yourselves for employment, right? You would want to approach institutions, companies, corporations, or universities, or whichever, or work with some individuals who are willing to employ you, right, as an employee, and give you that fixed amount for the amount of effort that you're going to put. So you offer yourselves for getting employed, and you say, boss, give me the fixed monthly for the labor that I would put in, with certain obviously contracts and terms of employment and engagement, right? That's the easiest way. The other way that government now and a lot of people are understanding is that, yes, while it's good to, and not everybody can sort of, or has the appetite to start something on their own in terms of a business or a profession, um, the environment today from a government perspective and from the youth in terms of talent perspective is conducive for starting up a business. So that is the other form where an individual can say, hey, I want to get use my skill set, whatever I've learned in theory or whatever, and take some risk and start, why don't I start a business? By doing a business, getting all resources in place is where it could be as simple as starting a store. It could be just starting a trading business. It could be starting on some skill sets in terms of, let's say, a coaching institute or whatever that activity might be. Taking the risk and doing that activity and earning sort of money out of it by doing that activity, the ownership which lies on the entrepreneur is called a business. So starting a business is the other active sort of a choice that a person would have. And amongst the largest sort of activity in India, if people have done, I mean, what is the source of livelihood for the majority of the Indians in terms of being actively engaged, is farming. If you in the past, if you've seen that, obviously without getting into details of why farming is bound to sort of, and we'll see that in a moment probably, but why farming is not lucrative. It was not lucrative earlier, and probably with technology it's getting more lucrative now. But taking up farming as an activity for, as a as a full-time activity for gain, earning an income, has been as old as mankind, in terms of people in India, when we were a completely agrarian society in a few decades earlier, to even today when we say that we are self-sufficient in sort of most of the foods, the staples, rice, wheat, the onions and potatoes and whatever that we produce, farming is definitely now a priority area with technology, with the advent of technology, to become an activity which people are doing or individuals are doing for gains. So these three primary activities are the ones which more or less individuals do engage to earn the steady cash inflow for them, which can be classified as an active income, right? A moment of pause here is that almost as if that when the first step that we take in terms of getting any income that we would want to do is start active or start an activity, right, on our own, whether through employment, farming, business profession or whatever, right? Before you jump into getting a passive activity, so a young person obviously will not be entitled to a pension because he's never worked before, right? So you cannot say that, hey, I want to have a pension, for example. That's something that you'll have to put in years of effort, at least a few years of effort before you can say that I will be entitled after so many years, that I will be entitled to this passive income because you have put in so many years of work with a particular employer or a particular organization and so on and so forth. Similarly, unless as a business you have accumulated enough wealth so that you can work your investment. So what that means in a nutshell is that you got to have an active income first before you can generate a stream of income through passive sources, as we have seen in the slide before that. So what do we do here? We are saying that you need to build some assets from your active income, from these activities that you do earlier on, right? If you have a salary, and in the earlier session or in the earlier when we talked about money in the elsewhere, so we actually talked about the cash flow, the concept of cash flow there. So I would not go into details of that, but in terms of cash flow, if somebody is earning, in short, if somebody is earning a set of money, after he's spending everything, whatever remains, and that is saved and invested, right? Unless that activity is done, when you are earning a salary or a business or you are doing a farming activity, unless that cash, unless the amount of money that you have saved for a series or a period of time, you cannot build an asset, and therefore you cannot really think about building a passive income. So therefore what do we say here is that use all the active income that you have generated through whatever activity that you are doing or undertaking, put a certain amount of cash, of that cash inflow, towards generating or building an asset, and then start towards building the passive income. So this is the first step. So the active income precedes the passive income, and that will happen when you start simultaneously over time start building assets. The other rule, which is very basic, I mean, to understand, is that spread the assets. I mean, it's a very old sort of a theory which says that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why do we say that? We say that because if the tendency is that one egg breaks, there's a chance that several other will break, and whatever you have in that basket all goes bad, right? That's the idea. And so therefore what does it say? The common sense says that ideally you spread your eggs, or whatever that savings, or whatever the accumulated corpus, into various different risk based places or asset classes generally, so that the risk of one going bad or not working or not going as per expectation, and something else will cover you, something else will. So that's the basic stuff of spreading your assets across the risk classes. If one asset class is really slow moving and earning you very low returns, there is a chance that the other might earn you a better return, right? So spreading it. So first thing is work the activity, earn the income, use that cash flow to build the asset. When you're building the asset, spread the asset across, right? So these are the steps where you can actually precede the getting the passive income in place. Higher risk category assets in the initial phase of saving. Now this is something again very basic, but it is sometimes overlooked. Basic stuff sometimes typically are getting overlooked, and that is where we some of the mistakes that are done by individuals. What does this mean here is, when you are young, you can afford to make mistakes, right? In the job, in the activity that you are doing, so that you learn and avoid doing the same mistakes. in the future, and that's the way that you learn faster and you get better at what you do. Similarly, in while investing as well, if you take risks earlier on when you are investing, if your investments go bad, there are two things that might happen: that the investment itself are smaller, because in the earlier phases you are doing smaller investments from your smaller income that you accrue in the earlier phases. So if things are going bad, you have a chance to learn from them and correct those mistakes, right? uh, at the same time, because you are young and because you have a lot of years to earn the active income, uh, you have a long runway ahead of you. You need to put that, or you need to build assets in the risky space. And I mean risky space, not anything related to gambling or those kinds of stuff, but assets which are time tested, like stocks or mutual funds, investing in equities, those kinds of instruments where the chance of getting a higher return, okay, over a longer period in time will result in, even if there is a volatility, even if there are one or two or three set of bad years, or you are stuck in a down cycle when those assets are not doing well, you would still have a chance that, because you are young, you still have a chance that those assets will recover and start performing exceedingly well as time progresses. So therefore, when you're spreading it across, put it in higher risk categories early on, not at when your active age is nearing your retirement age. That's not the area where that's not the age or uh, profile where you need to put in high risk assets. The assets that you need to put in a high risk category are much earlier on in the life cycle, in the life stage, right? And the earning, when you're doing an active income. Again, create a goal. This is the final thing, but the point is, it's understated in the sense that uh, we all have financial goals, right? The financial goals can be the easiest one for us to, and we have seen that is retirement. That, yeah, after you put in 10, 20, 30 years of active work, whether it's farming, business, salary, whatever, or employment that you're taking, you would want to say that, hey, I would want to retire, and I would want to retire in a very peaceful manner, so that whatever I was earning when I was active, I need to get the same income. I mean, that's what we call pension. If the government is giving you, or if you bought a private pension plan, you need to match, or you need to actually get the similar amount of cash inflow even when you retire, right? So that can be a financial goal. So create that financial goal early on. The other goal can be that you want to, which can be not as long as your retirement, which can be, for example, could be your higher education. So assuming that you have done a particular college degree and you say that in the next 3 or 4 years, I need to go abroad for higher education. I need to pursue a particular degree which might have a particular amount of cost associated to that. So that could be another financial goal which you need to work on. So you need to create a goal, a financial goal, and then it can be as many as you think you would want to fulfill. But once you create the goal, you need to create the asset which can fund that goal. So that is very critical. The earlier you do in your active income stage, when you're doing that activity, when gainful activity that you're doing, the better, right? So active income is the one that you're going to sort of immediately get as you get active. You finish your academic kind of part and you say that I am ready to now do some activity, contribute my labor to the labor market, and earn that active income. It will precede the good life. It will precede the passive income that you would ultimately want to augment and enjoy life. So what are the sort of skill sets which are required to um, start any. So this is just before we move on, I just wanted to quickly uh, check on this particular aspects when we talked in detail on starting a business or a profession. Is what are the activities, what are the skill sets that are required. You need capital if you want to start. You don't require these skill sets, and we'll see that in the subsequent slides. You don't need sort of capital You don't need a family background or whatever. If you want to straight away say, I want to offer myself for employment, right? For a salary, you don't need that. But you really need those two. You need capital to start a business or a profession. So if you have a profession, then you certainly need capital to start a small space and start a doctor practice or start a sort of if you're a painter, you want a sort of a showroom or a studio or whatever. So you need capital to be able to do those activities. And so we'll see that in greater detail as we move ahead. What are the skill sets that are required and what are the items that will be required. We talked about passive income in a brief manner in the earlier slide. Let's look at the power of passive income. This is very, very important for us, and we're all interested in getting the income where we think we do no activity, but we kind of increase the cash that we get on a periodic basis, and it can need not work as much hard, and the money is going to work for me. So the power of passive income is large. Okay, but remember that early on, as we said, when we do gainful activity or employment, the active income is going to be the large portion of our cash flows, right? So most of our time that in the early stages is going to be full of activity, and you will have a lot of active income in the earlier on stage. This active income, when you try to save a lot, over time in this phase, as you build your savings and create assets, the passive income is really going to basically build over a longer time frame. There could be a time where when you are closer to retirement, passive income can literally fund whatever active income you were sort of earning in your later years, and plus a lot more. How can that happen? That happens because if you've invested in the right set of assets, then the amount of passive income that you could earn by doing less and less of activity, the chance of that is very high. How do you increase? How do you get the passive income? It obviously, as I mentioned, it increases with age due to rising investments in assets. So make effort early on to invest in assets. Again, as I mentioned in the earlier slides, variety of assets, right from riskless to risky assets. Build the basket of assets which will over a time give you a lot of sort of grow with time while you are doing the activity and earn you become a launch pad or become a base for you to earn passive income later on. The underlying assets that you invest when you are earning actively should be able to return higher returns, which means as we mentioned earlier, investments from your active income early on should be in riskier assets, so that will actually enable you to earn these higher returns. You should not be bothered about possible risks of failure, because you still have a long time. This time frame that you have here for building that asset is fairly large. If you think about your entire career, which spans 35-40 years, you have a lot of time for the asset to earn higher returns. It can, and the other beauty is that the asset can earn you till perpetuity. So assuming that you have made an investment in a set of assets, the return from those assets, whether it is a rental income earned from a property, it is a dividend income from shares, it could be royalty on certain books that you have probably written, right? You have created that IP for yourselves, that can continue till perpetuity, till the asset lasts, right? Until the building remains standing, unless it just sort of becomes old and no longer capable of earning, or maybe the land which is not destructible theoretically. So the income from these kinds of assets, or the shares or stocks or debentures that you have, are sort of long-term assets which can you can earn that income till perpetuity or till the asset lasts. Yeah, it continues in the earning power. The best part, it does not require any effort. does not require too much effort from you. All you need to do is just monitor it, so that the amount of income that you're earning from that asset class is appropriate, right? So there's no damage to the asset. That is the only thing that you need to do in terms of managing a particular asset passively. And passive income as a result can continue to, all it requires is a periodic review. You need to keep an eye on your assets so that they're not going bad, right? So if you have invested in a particular stocks, if they're not failing, if the companies, the stocks that you own, the companies of the stocks that you own are not performing operationally bad and are not going bankrupt, right? All you need to be aware and put your sort of thinking cap on, and just monitor those periodically so that the asset stays evergreen, right? And it helps individual, it just frees up, it frees your timing in terms of labor or constant activity that you might need to do on a daily basis. If you have a strong stream of passive income, it will just free you from this bondage and from stress, the stress which is associated to lower finance, the stress that is associated with lower income, and the money that you are not able to maybe fulfill your wants from. That stress can be reduced. So that's the power of passive income. um, we look at we looked at the three activities in sort of, so we are actually looking at a slightly detailed and very quickly at what happens in the active income stage, to be honest. Yeah. At a salaried level, what's happening, right? Salaried level, sort of, you are young, probably you are just entering the job market. Financially you are less, there's less stress, you just want to go contribute to the labor and you're finished, right? You end at the end of the day, you do not have any stress, you are contributing your labor and you're earning your income, right? It's easy, right? Doesn't require capital, right? Earlier in the stage, you might get lower salaries, lower income, but as you experience grows and your skills improve, the chance that you can do a career faster, progress in your career faster, and probably get higher income, right? The what is the most obvious the flip side, or the most obvious pitfall is that there's a uncertainty in jobs, and that's even more prevalent as we go ahead, when we head into age of artificial intelligence, the age of where the machines are doing a lot of hard labor, right? There's a lot of job loss, uncertainty, when you're actually doing a activity and offering yourself for employment. Income growth obviously will be low. You can't expect to earn very high income in the initial years because you're raw, your skill sets are not developed. Now let's look at, if what if you choose to do a business or a profession, right? Initially, obviously, it's going to be a trouble. I mean, when you open a business, it's not going to just boom. It's going to go from a very slow manner. People will need to get used to your products or a service, so initial income will be lower. uh, the good thing is you're completely free, unlike the job where you have a boss and the boss has the boss, and you have to do with your own, you do not have freedom to work as you please. In business, you are the boss, right? So if you have a business or profession, you can shut it on at any time, shut it on or off at any point in time. You have total control on your time, right? And you will have resources at your disposal. Obviously there's no job loss because you are the boss, right? You will fire on hire people, so there's no, it will be stressful, obviously. So that's the flip side. 90% of the startup fail in terms of they wind up, and within 3 years. So there's a rule of 1,000-day rule. So if an entrepreneur succeeds in his business or a profession that he set up for the first 1,000 days, then hopefully he will sort of succeed. But then 90% of the startups fail in the first 3 years. That's the rule of thumb. Not really that that you're bound to fail. Majority of them kind of fail. So that's the big uncertainty when you're jumping into a startup or doing a business. Uncertain cash flows, while salaries will give you a certain amount of money for the effort that you have put in consistently. There's no consistency, there's no certainty to the cash flows. One month or a quarter you will have a high amount of sort of money flowing in, the other month you might not have. Farming. Now this profession is obviously been amongst the oldest profession. However, it has got its set of sort of pros and cons. Again, just like business, you have complete freedom to choose whether what crop I choose, whether it will be cash crop or a staple crop. I mean, you can do that depending upon, you can control your activity based on, you want to take a holiday in a particular crop, take a crop holiday, you don't want to do anything. You have a bumper crop and you want to take it easy and you don't want to risk it. You are free to do that. There's always a growing demand for cash crops. There's a growing demand for staples. Export demand is going to be there. So yeah, I mean, so whatever activity that you do, you will, and because it's very basic in terms of food, that the farming community does for us, it will always remain in demand, right? There's no job loss, obviously, because you are the master, you are the controller of the activity that you do. It's weather dependent. The farming is extremely, it's on vagaries of the nature. It's weather dependent. Economies of scale. Many farmers who have smaller unit size of lands, it's not scalable, it's not remunerative in terms of, and it's in the ultra competitive markets, the smaller farmers obviously are at a disadvantage. So unless you get economies of scale, you cannot. And then obviously because the weather plays truant every now and then, there's a very high chance of a crop loss. So at an active income stage, depending upon how you want to, sort of take, in terms of whatever activity that you take, it's going to have an impact on the income that you earn. That is very critical. And as a result of that, it will have an impact on the passive income that you would want to build. However, government is, in the recent years, the government is providing a lot of support, right, in terms of education loans. So now what's happening is, if somebody wants to have a higher skill sets, the government supports you in terms of, providing loans for you to have your skill sets up to 10 lakhs and 20 lakhs for going abroad. So now earlier, so education in foreign universities is very expensive, but now the government is supporting you to give loans up to 20 lakhs of going abroad at a very subsidized rate. So that's happening. Commercial banks are giving the loan, the facility to pay, the tax subsidies, and the tax sort of holidays for so that you can pay off that. The rates of sort of loans for these kind of loans are now at a subsidized rate. So similarly for farm loans, so all the farming community, anybody who wanting to take that activity, there are a lot of these items like the Kisan credit cards, the free credit, collateral free credit that is available, with the farmers, self-help groups can kind of come together and use this. Loan limits are already there. There's a lot of detail of the farm loans and the schemes on the government websites. I would encourage all of you to sort of go and read that in detail. There's a sort of Mudra Yojana, which is now, this is for somebody, for individuals who want to get into active income stage, predominantly for business professions. So anybody who wants to start a small business, like these street vendors and stuff, their loans at as low as Shishu loans at 50,000, and then these up to 5 lakhs for somebody who wants to put up a, let's say I want to put up a transport business and start up with one vehicle, and then I want to buy that vehicle, start earning as a self-employed, the loans for that. And then Tarun loans, where you want to set up a manufacturing unit, small scale, where you up to 10 lakhs of it, the government is providing such support. So there's a lot happening. I think you should first know what's there. So please go ahead and read on the websites, government related websites on these schemes. Know, then secure these funding, and then transform your active sort of stage of income generation. Moving on, this is a very important and sort of important topic that I want to tell. Whatever income you earn, right, it's very critical that you are aware that there is a demon. There's a demon called inflation. I mean, I would want to call it inflation asur. And this particular demon out here is very potent, in the sense that no matter how much income you earn, predominantly he is very lethal for somebody who's earning a salary year on year, right? and who is not able to save, or not, in fact, whatever he's saving and investing, he's not able to beat this inflation asur, then it will have a negative impact on your purse, on your savings. How is that? A very simple example that I always give is that, the butter. This is a 100-gram Amul butter, which was, this is a period, is a 20-year period that I have, sort of to show you. The cost of the Amul butter 100-gram was about 12 rupees in the year 2003. So about 2003, this 12 rupees of Amul butter, the same 100-gram butter today comes at about 56 rupees for the same 100 grams. What has this demon of inflation done to your pocket is that, the rate of your table butter has increased every single year by 8%. What that means is, if you had 100 rupees, and we will see that, what happens when a cost of a butter, or cost of any item that you think, butter, rice, wheat, whichever item that you consume on a daily basis or periodic basis, what happens if the cost or the price of that, what you pay, grows consistently on an annual basis of 8%, the price of that increases manyfold. In this case, it has almost gone up by almost 4x, 5x, right? So about 4 to 5 times it is increased by. So in 20 years at 8%. So inflation is actually a ticking time bomb. What it is doing, unless your money, or unless, so what is the takeaway from this slide is simple, just one item. The one item is that unless you are able to get 8% or more from your investments or the savings that you have done, you are in the same place, right? So, and we'll look at how that happens. So in terms of time value of money, so you say, in the earlier slide we saw this demon which is eating away, the inflation is eating away the price, and the price of the commodities that you consume on a daily basis increasing every year at 8%. What was just the value of 500 today will be half as much or lower 5 years later. So that will happen. A simple formula. So basically the takeaway here is, as I said, if the inflation, now this is just a number, I mean, I've said it at 8%, that inflation today might be 6%, 6.2%, 5.5%, whatever. The catch here is that you need to grow your investments and savings above this rate to be able to maintain the same 500 rupees, if needs to remain at the same level, the same purchasing power, then you need to earn greater than 8% is the message here. Obviously, the formula here for the future value of money is, this is the prices of today and 1 plus rate. So that 8% and is growing by n number of years, right? So that's the formula. So if you put in, your price of, let's say, whatever, the 56 as the price of the butter, and sort of, if it's the rate of inflation is at 8% for 20 years, then you will grow. I mean, if it were 12 rupees earlier, it would have grown to 56 over at 8%, right? So that's the formula. This is very basic math that you need to be aware of, and it's easier to calculate. It's a fun thing to calculate. So I would imagine that you guys just take up your calculator, just, or a pen or a paper, and then try to put a lot of these prices. So I've given you a price of, in this case I have given you the price of butter between these 2 years. It will be an interesting activity for you guys to actually compare prices of whatever you want to, between a 10-year period or a 20-year period, and then compare how the prices have moved, and then calculate based it on this rate, in terms of what is the rate of inflation that was there between that time period that you are sort of comparing against. this is something very, very important. This is the next thing that we should be talking about, and we should be pay attention to this particular slide. We're talking about a very simple rule of 72 here. Now, why this is important? This is important because of two things. One is, the first that we saw is you need to earn greater than inflation, right? That's the rule number one. To be able to make any sense of your and achieve all the passive income goals that you have in the mind, which means that if you want to say that I want to retire earning the same income that I am, sort of getting today, and possibly when I retire, whatever I'm getting, I need to earn the same stuff. I need to put the assets in such a way that I get passive income out of those, right? But to be able to generate those assets, I need to get higher rate than what the inflation was, sort of growing at. How do you get that higher rate, and what is that rate which will be, sort of important or easy to calculate? This is the rule of 72 is, in a way, is a very basic rule. You can do it in a calculator, sort of to be able to see what your investments are, sort of growing at. So, for example, the rule simply says that, my rate is the amount of time to take to double the money. You have to just divide it by 72. So if I divide 72 by 6, right, it gives me a rate of 12%. So 12, 6, 72. So this 12 is the rate. So this is the derived value, but it works both ways, in the sense that if somebody is offering me, this is very critical, therefore just pay attention to this. If somebody is offering me 36% return, any asset, okay, any asset which somebody is saying, because I have a good investment, okay, I am going to double your money in 2 years, okay, or he's saying I am going to give you 36% for the money that you part with. So rate, I am dividing the rate by 72. What happens? This is years. So I can calculate, if I divide 72 by years, the rate at which my investment is growing. Conversely, if I divide 72 by 36, which is the rate, it's percent basically, okay, this is percent. If I divide by that, I will get the years, 2 years. Now this is very, very critical. If somebody is saying to you that I will double your money in a year's time, he is promising you 72%. If somebody is saying I will double the money in 2 years for you, I have an investment, I have a hot investment for you, I will double your money in 2 years. He is implying that he is giving you 36% rate of return for the annually for 2 years. Is that possible in today's time frame, right? So therefore, I would say be aware. So in Hera Fairy, for example, they said 21 दिन में माल double, right? 21 दिन में पैसा double. Obviously, it's a scam. If you really divide 72 by the number of years, so 21 days, if you were to divide by 365, and that will be the point in years, the amount of return on an annual basis is mind-boggling. Nobody will be able to do. So all you need to do is apply your mind to be able to think whether that's possible. Itna ho sakta hai? Is it really possible to give that kind of return on an annual basis? No. So that's a red alert. It's a scam. So anybody, so it's easier for, so any instrument which gives you a return of 8%, 6% or 20%, right? You can actually calculate the amount it will take to double your money, and you will have to historically check whether these returns are sustainable. Which are the assets which have given you annual returns of 8% and 20% and 15% and anything in between, like 10%. What are the asset classes? Anything below this, and you are not beating inflation, the Asur which is there, you're not beating that at below 8% or 7% or 6%. And above 20%, 25%, 30%, you need to ask questions like which are the asset classes on a consistent basis historically are giving you those kinds of returns. If really there are very high rates offered to you, it's likely that it's a scam. So just pay attention to it and be very careful if somebody is giving you these kinds of schemes and saying that the rates of returns are high, I'm able to, so you can easily check it with the rule of 72 whether the rates of return that he's talking about are making sense, right? So very important rule to remember. Savings versus investment. So this is very, very critical as you head ahead, right? First understand the first step, right? Earnings, whatever you do on a monthly basis minus whatever outflow, this is your inflow through your active employment or active activity. You are spending, this is your outflow, right? Whatever you are spending is equal to surplus deficit. Now, ideally surplus is the way to go, right? There could be deficit. If the deficit is only few times, kabhi, periodically if there is a deficit, it's manageable. If you have a consistent deficit, you have a problem in life, right? You are not being prudent with your finances. Always having a surplus is a way to cultivate savings and investment, right? So that's the first step. Second step and important is investment. Minus borrowing is equal to net worth. So if your investment, which means the assets that you have or you have created, right, minus the loans that you have taken, that is the net amount, or that is your net worth, that is the net amount or the net assets that you have with you after you have paid all liabilities, right? This is the second step. The higher the net worth, the better your chance to earn a passive income. Point number one. Point number two, the higher the net worth, the faster the growth of the assets, and therefore the higher the chance of you to earn the passive income, right? So it's a very important equation, personal finance equation. Only two things to remember, that you should earn and spend lower than what you earn, you get a surplus. Second, put in assets and you don't borrow too much so that you have a positive net worth. You are not actually in debt. If you have too much of borrowings and less of investment, then you have too much of debt, right? And which obviously is, you have to pay it back. And worse, it can increase over time. So don't do that. Earning, spending, investing and borrowing. So just these four things are very important. Whatever you earn, you spend lower of that, okay? Have a positive surplus, invest the rest and borrow at the least level. Borrow at the least level so that this has the positive impact, this equation has a positive impact on your assets or the asset base. That's the right way to go, right? This is the cycle of money, by the way. Now here again, between that cycle, there is either a virtue or a vice. All of us, everybody goes through these cycles. The idea is to inculcate a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious trap. You will get into a debt trap if you sort of go into a vicious cycle, and then rather than a virtuous cycle of actually saving and investing and saving and investing. How? So basically, in the earlier slide we saw that you have a surplus. The surplus is going to create assets. Those assets will help you generate income. This is the passive income that we have been talking about, right? So this is the passive income, okay? This passive income is earning basically that is enabling you to generate more surplus, because the passive income, the idea is when you are active, don't use the passive income, plow it back. So back into the assets, so the surplus is moved back into the assets. You create more assets, is creating more surpluses for you. So this is the virtuous cycle. The opposite to this is the debt trap, where you have more liabilities than assets. Once that is happening, you have a liability, you have a deficit, then you have a liability, you have, because of the debt, you have more interest to pay. So the debt keeps on increasing. The beginning of the year I had 100 rupee debt, I have to pay 12 rupees interest. I don't pay that because I don't have the surplus. So it becomes 112 rupees of debt at the end of the year, which is the beginning of the next year, and then the debt keeps on ballooning. It's called ballooning debt, and that has more deficits because you don't have cash to pay the ballooning debt, and there's more liability, and then you're finished. So the debt is going to weigh you down, and that's going to kill you financially. So recognize this fact and choose very wisely. What do you want to do? You want to, in the cash flow, you want to save. After sort of you save first, spend a little bit, save whatever is remaining out of your income. That income is plowed back to create assets. Once that is done, the virtuous cycle starts. Otherwise, you're spending too much, your income is not there, and then you have started the debt trap. And then it's an individual choice, as I said. So you have to be very conscious of what cycle you want to start. Once you have started that cycle and you stay disciplined, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So from that perspective, please pay a lot of attention to this area, sort of, and then you should be financially very happy. What are the life stage cycles? And we have seen this in the active and passive income slides earlier, right? You are basically till the age of 25, you are doing your education, higher education, right? These are your active years where you earn active income through business profession, farming, through salaries, employment, whatever, right? And then for the 20 years, or maybe as life expectancy increases, 25 years, you are in the retired life. Possibly you are doing some hobbies because you're still active in the earlier part of the retirement, but over time the physical mobility goes down and you are retired. You are having the, so the earlier year are incubation, you are building the life skill. The later years are the consumption years. The real sort of years is basically where you have a lot of active income and you're building the assets. So you have financial goals, so you need money. So you need money to plan for your spending and plan for your passive income, generating the passive income, both. How? Because you want to buy a car, a home, these are things, financial goals that you will be spending on to have a good life. Children's education, you are building a foundation, that's a part of investing for their future. Vacation is something that you're taking as a leisure activity. These are all spending activities, these are financial. And retirement is something that you want to build a passive income for, right? So this is a typical sort of a life state cycle for most of us, right? Active income and then passive income, and in between that you'll have all these goals, to financial goals, to actually worry about. The biggest and the longest goal and the longest horizon goal is retirement, as we saw. Planning for retirement is very, very critical here. So for that alone you will need to build a passive income, and therefore you have to basically be aware of the fact that early in the stage, get into the virtuous cycle, build a asset, sort of a base, so that you start building a very high asset base, and which will give you a passive income and making you ready for retirement, right? How to plan for retirement? Okay, so this is very quick for all you young guys. There might be a long time for you to retire from, maybe another so any people, youth, young people just getting into employment, starting a business, and the retirement might be still 30 years away, right? So it's a long, but you can still plan for it in a meaningful manner. How? By putting in very small steps, taking a baby steps towards planning for retirement, right? So typically what would you do? I mean, let's say I have expenses of XYZ, X amount today. Let's say I have an expenses of 20,000 today, right? All you need to do is you need to calculate, and you can use a lot of web tools. You can use a lot of retirement calculators which are available even on RBI websites or a SEBI website, right? Or these insurance websites which actually gives you these tools to calculate your annuity and retirement, calculations for a few years from now, right? So but before that you need to calculate what are the first years of annual expenses on retirement. How do you calculate that? By the same formula that we talked about in the inflation slide. If you use that, you will be able to see how much of the current expenses will inflate to. So today if you are spending 20,000 a month, okay, on expenses, you will be 30 years or 25 years later, you will be spending the amount multiplied annual basis by the inflation, right? You'll have to inflate that out at a whatever 5%, 6%, 7% as an inflation rate. Calculate the first year of expenses, right? Once you calculate that, calculate the real rate of return on retirement. That's again, it changes from year to year, but it's sufficient to say that if the nominal rate, which is the rate that is offered by risk less or a risk free investment, which might be, let us say, 7%, just an example, right? So if this is the nominal rate and minus this is the inflation, I'm just keeping at the moment at 5% and I'm saying this as inflation. The real rate is 2%. Okay, this is the real rate, right? So you need to calculate this rate, and that could be, sort of, it need not be, nobody knows the real rates unless you are actually looking at it from a longer. At this moment, it's sufficient for us to understand that whatever the nominal rate, you can take a guess, fair guess, and whatever is the inflation rate that is expected, and a lot of economists will answer that for you in that what is the inflation rate, expected inflation rate, and you'll have to calculate the real rate. Once you calculate that, estimate the corpus. Okay, estimating the corpus is by taking the real rate which is there and the corpus that you have calculated based on the expenses that you require, right? And so expenses that you require on a monthly basis, multiply by 12 for example, right? Divide the same by the real rate, you should be able to get the corpus, because that corpus is going to earn you that much income to stay sustainable for earning the passive income, right? And then start building the corpus, which means if the corpus, let us say for example, is 1 crore that you require when you retire 25 years later, you need to build the corpus from today. So there are tools and calculators. You can use the formulae in those tools, calculators. So it's like automated. You put that, what is the amount of money that I need to put on a monthly basis or save on a monthly basis to get this corpus, let's say 25 years later when I retire. As simple as that, right? So use what is the amount, by using the calculator, it will give you the monthly, contribution. Okay, it will give you the monthly contribution that you require to do to start your retirement journey, right? So this is a very basic step. I have not put any calculations here for the purpose, saying that just these are the steps that you need to be aware of. There are plenty of calculators that you can, go on the web and, do it step by step to calculate what is your retirement corpus, so that you can start your first journey towards taking, steps towards building a retirement corpus. So very quickly now, once you retire, so this maybe a lot of youngsters were looking at, this, sort of a presentation. A retirement plan basically is, so that once you get the corpus, these are the tools which will, or these are the products which help you to basically plan for that corpus building activity or exercise, right, today. So you can, when you get into employment, you already have something called as an employee provident fund. Apart from that, this is a Government of India, you can invest and open an account. It's called the PPF account. You can open this account, which is, from the Government of India. You can contribute additionally to provident fund, apart from the employee provident fund which your employer is giving. Then you have the NPS. Okay, so this is a Government of India introduced 15 years ago. This was introduced, right? A system where which you can create a corpus for your building the retirement corpus. So you can contribute on a monthly basis to this system, choose a pension fund manager which will help you channelize those savings and building a large retirement corpus 20 years or 25 or 30 years from today, right? So these are basically traditional products. What are the new age products? Stocks. Now, why do we say new age products? We say new age products because the penetration of investing in stocks is yet to catch on in India, despite the stock market being, being there in India for last, several years, several decades, I would say. But in real popularity, where common investing in stocks has started about maybe 50-60 years ago, right? Where a lot of people were investing in secondary markets and primary markets, capital markets were started to develop, right? Even today, well, there are so many account openings that are happening, and a lot of people are investing and opening trading accounts and demat accounts, right? The penetration of it is still very low, and that is important. Therefore, to choose stocks as a means to allocate some savings and channelize them for keeping for 20, 25 and 30 years as a long term sort of horizon, so that can augment your retirement corpus. Equity mutual funds, these are again easily understood products. However, planning for retirement through equity mutual funds has caught on in the last 5-10 years, and I think that's why it is 20 years or 30 years ago, equity mutual funds were not used as retirement products. Probably they will get even more popular as we go ahead. And bonds, of course, and in bonds now you have several options. You can invest in Government of India bonds, you can invest in corporate bonds, okay, you can invest in private sector debt, okay, you can do that. And for very high risk, there is something called P2P lending also now, which is, I mean, you should know more about it, not necessarily use it as a retirement, but peer to peer kind of lending platforms have also. So please study a lot about them, check whether they are regulated or not. But then in fixed income now you can have a lot of new age products which are available, and use it, right? Post retirement. So this is the earlier slide where I talked about you building the retirement corpus. Once you retire, and probably the person, the audience that's viewing this possibly might be pretty young, but you should be aware of where are the avenues for people who are retired, right? So typically senior citizen schemes, these are run by the Government of India, right? Senior citizen savings scheme, those schemes are traditional. They have been in existence for 30, 40, 50 years now. Fixed deposits are most popular even today for all senior citizens that are investing in. These are offered from companies, these are offered from corporates, these are offered by small savings banks, corporate banks, commercial banks, all of these fixed deposits are offered by these companies. So they are popular with senior citizens who want to park their retirement corpuses here. Monthly income scheme and post office MIS, that is extremely popular, right? These are all traditional products where all of the retired money has been residing in as SCSS, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme. The fixed deposits are still very popular. MISs are very popular even today. Mostly traditional products have been used in the past, will continue to be used. New age products which have gained popularity in the last 5-7 years are pension plans. These are in form of annuities, okay? So they are available. You can buy these annuities from most of the insurance companies, life insurance companies. They offer their annuities with rates ranging between anywhere between 6 to 7%, sometimes 7.5%, depending upon what product are you choosing. So annuities, they are not yet very popular, but over time they will become very popular. So these are new age this thing. Reverse mortgage is not yet popular, but this is again where seniors who do not have who have a lot of properties but do not have any financial assets can opt for reverse mortgage by mortgaging their property and taking a cash flow out of this. This is not yet popular, but can become popular source of retirement funding. And liquid funds, of course. Liquid funds offer multiple benefits, including access to capital, good rates, and so on and so forth, right? So post-retirement products are there. So let's now let me round up very quickly what we have learned. So we have covered a lot of ground on income per se and how you need to sort of treat passive versus active income and all of that. So the key takeaway from the entire session here is that build a passive income. If you can build a passive income early on in your career, by the 10th year, the 15th year, when you have an active income coming, you build a passive income, or you build assets which can earn you passive income, you are actually doing the virtuous cycle that we talked about, right? The virtuous cycle where you have assets, you have income, you are plowing back that income to earn more assets, and therefore you are increasing your asset base and your entire net worth faster, right? So build it early on. That's the message number one. Use rule number two to find where the risk reward is, right? So very critical. And protect against yourselves against scams. So this rule of 72 should be able to tell you whether a particular investment, the return that it is offering is not really worth it, or it's very risky. It will tell you that, right? Avoid falling in the debt trap. That's very critical. We talked about the virtuous cycle and the debt trap, right? So avoid getting into the debt trap, the vicious cycle, as we talked about. So avoid the debt trap and the vicious cycle of taking debt and not being able to service debt, and the ballooning debt sort of a situation. So avoid that. Beware of inflation. So we talked about inflation in a detailed manner. The inflation asur, or the demon of inflation, is going to eat all your savings, all your investments, however meticulously you have built them. If you have not beaten the rate of return at which inflation is growing, so you have to remember that you have to sort of grow your asset base faster than inflation, or the annual inflation number. So these are the quick key takeaways from the session. Thanks for joining in, and have a good day.